Good morning, everyone. Hi. I hope you can see me and hear me. All right. You can type in if my audio is clear and video is clear. Yes or no. Use your chat. Great. If there is anyone who cannot hear me, type. So my name is Arvind Nadig, and I run this company called as Li2. We are one of the partners for the Cisco ThingQbator program, and we've been working with Cisco and Nancom Foundation for the last a couple of years and close to 3 years now, setting up these labs called as a ThingQbator, where we're trying to promote IoT-based innovation among student community in colleges, and also giving them an opportunity to scale their ideas into impact. And a lot of them have also gone ahead and set up their own startups. So it's a great opportunity for me to interact with you people here. So today and tomorrow, the session is broadly based around the idea of prototyping, around the idea of how you can take your ideas to impact. And this is more of a interactive session, as I would like to put it, because we have enough technology that we are in talking terms, and it's not a one-way traffic. Is that clear for everyone? Are you ready to share some of your thoughts and ideas? Then you can type in yes. I just want to get everybody, understand how this session is going to work. So broadly, as I mentioned, this is about ideas, and this is about how we can prototype. Most importantly, this is also about design thinking. So the concept of design thinking, how do we look at it? So design thinking is not a framework, or I'm sorry, design thinking is not a science, or it is not a standard set of formulae, right? It is a very organic process, and it works differently for different people, and everybody have the flexibility to make a template for themselves which is meaningful and useful for them. So design thinking is more, you can look at it as a fabric, as a base, but you can create whatever you want on top of a framework like a design thinking framework. So it's not like if you use design thinking in a certain way, you're sure shot to have $1 billion company, or you're sure shot to have a product working. No, it doesn't work that way. Design thinking is a very, very useful, meaningful framework that we can look at, explore, and see what are the elements that we can use from that. So that's the whole idea. So if people are ready, you can just type in and start speaking. We have a lot of participants today. We have Ananya, Anushree, Bhumika. There are so many people here. Rishabh, Sagar. I'm not sure from where you people are and what's your background. So you can get started by introducing yourself. Should I call you out, or somebody can just type in and start speaking? Unmute yourself and start speaking. It's very important that we engage in a conversation, because otherwise it's going to become quite boring. I'm pretty sure already most of you are sitting at home and getting bored, and then I don't want to bore you more, right? So let us use this opportunity to interact. And more importantly, in the last 2-3 years, we've been working with projects and students across the country. And this session has been useful only when you speak about the project that you're working on, or the idea that you have. Because then, either myself right now, or we can set up a framework to have your ideas moved into an implementation phase. So it's important that you share, right? Otherwise, it's all going to be some kind of a theory. You would rather open YouTube and look at some videos and figure it out yourself. It's not about that. It's about how we can actually make this meaningful for you, right? So each one of you, please work this through. That's why I'd given a small assignment before we started to think through your idea, to put down a few points on how the idea can be taken to implementation. What are the things that you need? What are the things that you already have? So just put in these thoughts. It need not be an essay, or it need not be a presentation per se, right? It is just a bunch of thoughts put down on a piece of paper. so that during the course of this session, we can discuss each of these points so that all of us can benefit from this. Great. So someone has a message here. I'm Sagar from Cisco TQB, Bhubaneswar. Okay. Hi, Sagar. Then somebody is asking, is design thinking based only on prototype, or would it help in clarification of the idea? Great. That's a very good question. Yes, we are going to address that in a much more detailed way, Nikhilesh. So yes, we're going to start from that very question in a couple of minutes. So if people have access to a mic, I would really urge you people to just have nothing like, you're right or wrong. I just want you to interact. Just think that you're sitting with a bunch of friends and talking, because that's the only way this whole thing is going to become very effective. It is a very, very subjective science of the idea of design thinking and entrepreneurship and all of this put together. It's very subjective. It is very, very personal to each participant here. Ineffective for you to take this session further. So don't be shy. First and foremost, I want you to open up and speak up, because if you're here, I'm assuming that you really want to make it. You really believe in your idea or the thought process that you have, and you want to take. Anybody else who wants to talk, who wants to speak up or say something? There's somebody called Praharsh, Nikhilesh, Neha. There's so many people here. I mean, Ananya. I think a few had attended this session a couple of last week regarding entrepreneurship and regarding taking your idea. So this is a layer on top of that. These are very, very related topics, as I would like to say, because design thinking is a framework, entrepreneurship is a process, and your idea to impact is actually what you achieve. So all of this always go hand in hand. There is no separate, channels or streams for this. It's mainly about putting your thoughts together and structuring your thoughts in a certain way that makes it easy for you as well as your team to structure and take it forward. So that's what this whole thing is about. Because what happens is, most of the times when we want to do something, have an idea and take it to market or do whatever, it's typically cluttered with a lot of noise. The noise, what I mean by noise is, there's a lot of influence from outside. You see something is a hype. You see about AI and machine learning today. People are just talking about AI everywhere. So you might be biased, right? Maybe your idea or process really does not require AI in the first place, right? But then you would want to bring that in only because there is so much noise about it in the market or outside. So all of these things, I just want the dust to settle there and try and figure out what is the most important and most meaningful thing that we have that we need to address, right? So we have some people. There's Bhumika from Bangalore. That's very good. Industrial engineering management. There is Samira from, I'm not sure from which city, but Vineet from Hyderabad. Then we have from Varanasi, we have Anurag. Awesome. Prajwal, Bangalore. That's great. So we have a good bunch of participation from different parts of the country, and I'm glad that we're able to do this through technology. So perfect. So let me get started. Before, I know it'll take some time for you to start talking about your projects and ideas. That's fine. I'm not really asking you to start with that. Just wanted to understand the basic, setup of people that we have here. So somebody was asking about ideas and how design thinking is useful to even make your ideas clear, right? So let me just see if I can. Anyway, so we are going to talk about what is design thinking in a broad way, and then bring out a framework, and then talk about your ideas, and eventually see how we can implement your ideas. Prototyping. So prototyping is a big part of the session. So here we are. We are talking about ideas now. So somebody was asking how design thinking can help you refine your idea, right? So that's where we're going to start. So even before that, can somebody tell me what you think, or what is the first thing that come to your mind when we talk of design thinking? Say, I would like to actually take up a few projects and do the entire design thinking canvas on a couple of projects, starting right from defining defining the whole thing to what steps we can take, because only that's the only way you're going to learn design thinking, right? Otherwise, it's going to be very, very, very theoretical and quite meaningless. On top of a poll here. Let's see what you think about this. I'm asking if design thinking is something that starts with an idea or not. So 12 out of, we have about 19 people who responded, 20 people who responded. 12 people think that design thinking starts with an idea, and two of you think it doesn't. Okay. So I have news for you. Idea and design thinking are two independent things. Or what I would say is, ideas don't start the process of design thinking. There's something much more fundamental to that. So when we speak of design thinking, it's like this. How the idea or the concept of design thinking evolved is, when you are a designer, say for example you're an architect, or if you're into some form of design, right? Maybe an artist, or maybe you're into a creative process, graphic design, or any of these things. The way things work is, it doesn't really start from an idea. It essentially starts with why. Am I making it clear? Like if you want to build a building or a bridge, for instance, right? Nobody will have an idea, oh, I want to build a bridge. The idea doesn't start from that, right? Especially in architecture, the idea of design doesn't start with, I want to build a bridge, right? I have an idea of a bridge which is hanging, or I have an idea of a bridge which is looking this way, that way. It doesn't start that way. It starts with, why do we need a solution, right? So it's always starting with why and not with an idea. So that's the fundamental difference of our thought process when we apply design thinking versus when we apply our standard process. So typically, when ThingQbator was started, most of us started with, what's your idea? And we took your ideas and then we selected and we formed teams out of you. We do that because running a design thinking process before getting you all into one place is not possible. So that is why we just see how your thought process is or what you're trying to do. Just let you share some ideas, but it need not necessarily be that's the final thing, So what I'm trying to say is, design thinking as a process never starts with an idea. It starts with asking why. Okay, so that's probably one of the most important parts, or what you say, of understanding your approach. Anyway, the question that I'd asked was, does design thinking start with an idea? That is what, how many of you think it does and how many of you think it doesn't? That was the question. Most of you thought it does, and what I'm trying to say is it does not. Okay, so let me explain to you how and why that is meaningful, right? So ask everybody to get a piece of paper or a notebook with you, because we will also be doing out a bit of hands-on sessions here. We will be writing down some points. You'll be creating a small canvas as we proceed, so that you can benefit from this. So just have a piece of paper with you. Just put things around. SOS system for post calamity. Okay, SOS. So these are good starting points. I think we can get started with this. A smart water bottle which can detect impurities in water. We're going to drink. Okay. Impurities. Okay, let's hold it now. There are too many ideas now. That's good enough. I think we have about 5-6 things here. Great. So vertical windmill. Let's start with the last one because that's fresh right now. So vertical windmill, is it an idea, or is it a solution, or is it a problem? What is it? Where are we? We're starting a vertical windmills, right? Somebody spoke of vertical windmills. So is this an idea, or is this it's an implementation? Okay, Rishabh says vertical windmill is a implementation. Okay, people are talking about, let's see the process, before we get started with the whole design thinking methodology. I just want to understand how this whole thing started off, right? Somebody is talking of dehydration tracking, somebody is talking of SOS, somebody is talking of detecting impurities in water, somebody is talking about blind navigation, and somebody else is talking about vertical windmill. Okay, so these are the few things. So I want somebody to tell me with your idea why this idea came. Did you even think about why you're talking about this idea? Working on free and renewable energy. So one of the reasons is you're talking of free energy for people, right? Okay, that's good. What else? Anybody else? SOS. Somebody is talking about blind people. Why you want to do social service? What is your thought process? Why you came up with this? During so somebody has seen somebody's talking of funny the storm and couldn't be contacted for rescue. Okay, I use a lot of public transport and I see blind people struggle and stuff. So okay, great. Okay, so here we have Shubha and Sagar talking about a certain situation where they saw that something is missing, and Rishabh here wants to start with uh, a thought process where he wants to explore renewable energy. Okay, great. So let us start categorizing our thought processes. Okay, so is this an idea, or is it something more fundamental than an idea? Okay, so design thinking. Okay, so here is a quick definition of one of the definitions of design thinking: an approach of solving design problems by understanding user needs and developing insights to solve those needs. So if you notice here, please, are you able to see the screen? I'm sure you're able to see the definition here. An approach to solving design problems by understanding user needs and developing insights to solve those needs. Here, we spoke about funny as a storm and an SOS system, or we spoke about clean water. So we are starting with a need, and we are trying to put the users first and trying to understand what is the problem or what is the need that we're trying to address. So that's the primary difference between an idea implementation to design thinking. Is we start with the need. Is it meaningful? Why is it meaningful? Then the second question we ask is, whom is it meaningful for? And is it meaningful for me? Right? All of these questions, when it comes into picture, then it becomes a context. And that's when we start developing what we call as insights. So it is more of a mindset than it is a process. That's why I said design thinking is not, as I said, it's not a formula, right? It is a mindset. This is very, very important for especially people who want to be entrepreneurs to understand that there is no mantra, for instance, right? I am running a couple of companies right now and doing a bunch of things, but none of this is uh, a standard process. Like I cannot give you a formula to say do this way and you can have an education company, or do this way and you can set up a 3D printing company. It's not possible. So it is more of a mindset and understanding of the whole framework. So from this point, please remember that design thinking is a mindset more than it is a process. It is also a process, but then it need not necessarily be only a process, right? And what is that mindset? Only through contact, observation, and empathy with the end user can you hope to design solutions that fit into their environment. Very, very, very important. Okay, I'm going to share these slides So what I've done also here is I've put out a very, I've kept about 3 or 4 slides with me ready, because depending on what the conversation goes today and tomorrow, I want to kind of use these slides because this is more of an interactive session, as I mentioned already. So I've just kept this. So one thing that you need to understand here is uh, only through contact, observation, and empathy, the end user with the end user, can you hope to design solutions that fit into their environment. Very, very, very important point. What we're trying to say here is, funny, there was a problem. Yes, blind people crossing roads, vertical windmill. Yes, vertical windmill is a solution. Okay, vertical windmill is not a idea, or it is not even a starting point, because you're talking about what you will do in the end. All right. And so that comes later. So whoever said that, Rishabh, so I would want you to note that down, that you are starting with a solution rather than addressing the problem. Okay. So definitely, Rishabh, we need to work through this thought process quickly. The rest of you are okay. You're at least 2 steps ahead. But Rishabh is 10 steps ahead. So we need to bring back Rishabh to step 1 and the rest of you to step 1 and step 0. So we always start with step 0. Okay. So step 0 starts with contact, observation, and empathy. I'm going to come to some details about that, as opposed to what we have this problem. Let's jump in and get in a room and brainstorm solutions. Is that clear? So this is exactly what I was trying to tell Rishabh. So if you have a problem, let us get and brainstorm into solutions. It's not going to work that way. So vertical windmill is something that has been approached in that manner, where I want to work on renewable energy and working, and vertical windmill sounds cool. So let me start. No, we have this technology. What can you use it for? Do you understand? So this is the biggest problem we are having today with all the projects that we're working with ThingQbator. In fact, not only ThingQbator, I've been working with so many other college students and ideas. This is the biggest problem. What do you want to do? Arvind, I want to work on AI. Why? Don't know. I want to work on AI. I want to work on image processing. I like it. It's not that you like it. It is that it is fancy. It is, it's cool. So you want to start, right? It is fine. You want to learn. I am okay, right? You want to learn what is machine learning. You want to learn what is computer vision. That's great. Do it. But then I want to do a project in that area, because that's absolutely wrong. Because until unless you say that I'm doing this to learn, okay, fine, then you're learning. Please understand that you're not solving a problem. The problem that you're solving is you're learning. But if you want to go further and actually do something meaningful, take your idea to implementation, then you should be agnostic of technology, agnostic of solution. Very, very important. Okay. Our competitors have launched X. So how can we do X quickly? So this is the other one, right? Oh, everybody is talking about virtual reality. Everybody is talking about social media, or now today as we speak, we have the COVID-19 problem happening across the globe. Everybody is jumping into masks. I want to build a mask today. And where do they start from? They start from, I want to build a mask, right? I want to design it right now. I want to, so that why? It is not because they want people to, it's not because they want people to feel healthy by using masks. No, they can make a quick buck out of it, which is opportunistic. But as opposed to design thinking, this is not the right approaches, simply because you're not empathizing with the situation, and you do not have, if I go back to the previous slide, it's very clear here, you do not have insights. You do not have insights to solve those needs. You just have an idea, you just have an opportunity, and you're jumping into it, which is, see, that's the good thing about being a student, because you can always frame this into saying it's a learning process, right? However, what I'm talking about is, I'm not addressing, most of the people sitting here in this session are probably students. So but I'm not addressing this as a student problem. I am addressing this as a design thinking problem. I'm addressing this as, how do you solve larger problems in the ecosystem, right? And why do you want to solve it? The question is, how do you solve is secondary. Why do you want to do it, right? So let me go to the next slide. So design thinking, what, when, and how, right? When developing and deploying a solution to a problem presented in your organization or on your own, okay, that's when you apply design thinking. Or quickly come up to speed with a domain you're unfamiliar with, or surprise yourself regarding a domain you already know. So all of these are relevant to students. So basically, any of these could start triggering your design thinking process. That's what I'm trying. And then how? How is the most important part. It's a process. And again, as I said, design thinking is not, not a formula, right? So a lot of people use different names. A lot of people use different steps. But in the end of the thing, it is the process, or it is the end, what you say, underlying principle behind which we use this. So there are so many things. So this is one structure that is there. You start from understanding, go up to prototype, uh, and ideate and iterate, right? Or essentially observe, then you and then you build it and then you test it, right? So this is what it means. So if you see, in theory, this is the process you need to follow, but in practice, it never happens that way. You understand something, you build something as an idea, then while building that, you understand something new. And then you go further, you have an idea, at that time, you make an observation. And then you say, okay, you understand, okay, if I add this feature, maybe this is more meaningful. And then eventually, when you take it to people, they start giving you more feedback. And then you understand better. And then again, you start building. So this is how a natural process of building things happen, right? And usually this is how it kind of comes into picture. It's a funnel of ideas until you synthesize something and then eventually go to prototype and iterate. So you might always be thinking, okay, this is how all my projects are working. This is how my, what you call as a SOS system or my water purifier or my windmill is going to work. But then it will always look like this because all of us think that we are approaching things in a very structured manner, in a very thoughtful manner. But then I'm going to break it down further to show that you are at different stages in your idea and not really starting from the understand perspective. For example, the windmill is very clear. I think most of you can already see that the windmill idea is somewhere where you're talking about prototype, right? So you're already somewhere here, right? You're somewhere at the stage of 1, 2, 3, 4, fifth stage where you're saying, I want to build a vertical windmill on roads, right? Similarly, there was somebody else who was talking about helping blind people crossing the road, right? So that is more of a observation that you have made that I saw that a lot of people are not able to, blind people are not able to cross roads, and I want to do something for them. Okay, so that's fine. That's a good thought. But then I want to break it down further. Then water quality solutions. So that is an idea, or that's almost a definition of a prototype. It's not really trying to understand what market or what are we trying to solve there. It might, at this point, it might still sound like no, everything is looking the same. So here is the goal of design thinking: gain basic knowledge so you know the right question to ask, right? So the purpose of design thinking is not to get answers. Please remember, you write it down. Design thinking is not about getting answers. Design thinking is about setting the context right. That's all, right? Getting the answers will happen in iteration phase. Getting the answers will happen in your idea phase and in your implementation phase. But when you start the process of design thinking, the goal is to know whether I'm asking the right question, whether I'm moving in the right direction, right? That's the biggest question that we need to answer. right? What happens with this is you ask these questions from different angles or different places. You ask the same question to yourself, ask the same question to your team, ask the same question to your end users, and the answers are continuously different. Basically, what I'm trying to say here is at this point, we're talking about observations, we're talking about insight and asking the right question, and not necessarily even thinking about what we are going to do or even thinking about what is our solution going to be, right? We are not even going there. So a lot of times, as I said, we speak about ideas being the most important aspect, but then we just spoke about the fact that idea comes much later in the process. It's more about observation and asking the right question. Showed you a few minutes back. Design thinking never starts with an idea. Design thinking starts with what we call as empathy. So I briefly spoke about this in the last session, but today we are going to go much deeper into empathy because the most important aspect of design thinking is empathy. And the most left out aspect of design thinking is also empathy. Okay. So from that standpoint, can somebody tell me what is empathy? So let me put it this way. Let us go with blind navigation as a good start, right? So somebody said, I see a lot of blind people who cross the road, and I want to bring out a solution. So now, empathy, by definition, is this: understand the experience, situation, and emotion of the person who you are working for. One, you observe, you engage, you watch, and listen. You do three things here. One is an observation, second is an engagement, and third, you watch and listen. So here, the blind people crossing the road was an observation. The funny incident where you spoke about was an observation. Now, or probably it was more of a watch and listen situation because you saw on TV that so many people were stranded and all of that. So you're just basically watching but not listening. But what we miss out most of the times is that we don't engage. So empathy means, you think about yourself as a doctor, or you think about yourself as a lawyer, or something like that, where you, as a doctor, understand your patient's pain and suffering, but at the same time, you don't start feeling that emotion, and you don't become sympathetic with them, or you don't get lost with them. In most of the projects that we do here, we get lost in the process. For instance, like blind navigation, maybe, right, or something like an SOS system or something like that. We do it more from a rebel standpoint rather than from a solution standpoint. So we say, oh no, this is not working well. There is a lot of corruption. I need to solve this. I need to do that. And you essentially are overreacting to the situation more than trying to understand what is a more effective methodology of giving the end user a solution. So first, bring the end user into perspective rather than yourself, right? So that kind of flips around the whole process. Yes, we have certain what you call as biases. We want to work in technology field. We want to probably implement certain technologies, but then don't start at that point. Keep that as insights. Keep that as levers that you can then start. The very first step, as I said, is empathize. The second step is to go and define. Okay, so here we define the process and synthesize the findings in order to form a user point of view that you will address. Please remember that it is the user point of view. It is not your point of view, right? So when we define a problem, here we need to build personas. Here we need to build needs and insights, right? It might sound a little boring, but the most important part is to understand the needs and to get insights.
My project is on the basis of air purification, and through that we will be extracting carbons. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and we will be making the carbon products through that. Already the smoke purifier is implemented in Delhi, and the thing is that we are making some kind of innovation, or it can be a like different thing, but we are working on perspectives. Like first thing, we will be giving the service to the public as purifying the air quality. And second
Mhm.
thing, through that I will be making business like extracting the carbon and making those products like carbon fibers or carbon liquids.
Okay. Okay. Fine. So you're basically giving me a business idea or a business solution, right? Which is good. And you're talking about what is your project. But let me share this slide to you. Thank you, Sahil. I'll come back to you with a couple of questions. Here we are. When you're defining your project, you're saying that I am going to extract carbon fibers, whatever, carbon nanotubes out of smog, and there is a certain technology which I want to improve upon, and so on and so forth, right? When you define, when you define this as your two stages, right? That is stage one, empathize, stage two, define. This is very important, people, for all of you who are working on your projects. I would want to give this as an assignment to you. Redefine your idea. So typically all of you are talking about, okay, you're talking about two things. You're talking about idea, and you're talking about how you're going to implement your idea. Okay, this was more broadly the question also that I had asked, right? What is your idea and how are you going to take it to market? So I'm not blaming you that it is wrong, but I deliberately wanted you to think this way because that's typically how we approach always. So it was easy for you to write things down. That's why I had asked you that question. However, I want to now take you back two steps, right? What is the two steps back I'm taking you is understand the experience. So you're talking about carbon nanotubes or some carbon extraction, smoke, and other things, right? So what is the level of engagement that you have with your user or your customer in the first place? So that is what I want you to write down. Okay, I want you to understand what is your engagement or what is your observation from your end user or from your customer. Why I'm differentiating these two is if you have a purifier on the road, who is your end user? Your end user is going to be people who are going on the road for their clean air. Okay. But your customer is not them. Your customer is probably somewhere where you're selling this to somebody who would buy your carbon or I don't know what, right? Very broadly, I'm just talking about it. So, from that perspective, your observation engagement is going to be different at different levels. I want you to start doing this uh, very effectively from today. Talk to people and understand this, and how to talk to people. I'm going to explain to you in the next coming session. Very, very important. So here it is. Define, right? When you define, process and synthesize the findings in order to form a user point of view that you can address. So Sahil, what you addressed is your point of view. What you addressed is your company or your idea's point of view of the solution. I am not interested in that, or nobody is interested in that. Please understand. Nobody is interested in what's your idea, what's your solution, right? People are interested in how it's going to make sense to them at any point of time. So always define your project or product or solution with respect to user point of view. What will you address to the user? Develop an understanding of the type of person you are designing for, right? So essentially, who is this person? Who is going to use this, right? What are their needs? Synthesize and select a limited set of needs that you think are important to fulfill. Don't put needs, say, for example, you're talking of a blind person. Don't put the needs of a blind person to become as active or as effective as a normal person, right? That is too many things to solve. Okay, crossing the road, is that the real problem? Or going and finding the bathroom in the house, is that a bigger problem for a blind person? I don't know. Or climbing staircase within the house is difficult, or crossing the road, which is important. So the needs, then you will get insights. So now let me come to this, with respect to making you understand very clearly. So Sahil kind of mentioned two things here. One, he's going to purify the air, which is great. Two, he's going to sell the outcome as a byproduct, as a business solution to certain people who would buy carbon that is extracted out of this process. Right? There are two very clear, distinct users here, or the needs are two clear, different things. So now my question to you, everyone here who are talking about social projects, is I am going to purify air on the road. Okay, great. My question to you is who cares? My question to you is who cares and why? That's what I'm talking about, right? So that is what I want you to answer. Who cares and why? Yes, it is a great thing. I am not telling it's not a great thing. Helping blind people cross the road is very important. It's very nice. It's a great thing. But then I am telling you who cares and why. I want you to write that down. Once you write that down, you know how to approach this thing. You will get an idea of who might fund your project. You might get an idea of where to start from. Also get an idea of what is that important one single thing that you need to achieve rather than build the whole product itself. Okay. So it's very important to understand these three things. I will share these slides with you, but however, note this down right now. Two things: empathize. What is your observation, and did you engage? Please write this word down: engage, engage, engage. Right? Did you engage with anybody, or did you just make an observation? Did you just watch? Right? Did you engage? Did you listen? Did you engage? Did you listen? Is two very, very, very important things. If you have not done these two things, you are living in a very highly assumption based situation, and the whole process of design thinking is going to break down, right? So the whole process of design thinking is going to break down. So observation, engagement, watch, and listen, right? These four things form empathy, right? Very important. So what are those four things? Write it down. Write it down. So Sahil's project, Rishabh's project, vertical windmill. Who is going to benefit from this? Define the problem from that perspective. Yes, I'm going to solve pollution. Okay, let us say I'm going to solve pollution, but who cares? As an end user, I care because I travel the streets every day. But am I willing to pay 10,000 rupees for this? No. So who's going to pay? The government is going to pay, right? Or there has to be some investor who says, I will give you $10 million. You put this on the road, and then the carbon coming out of that, I will sell and I will get my money back. Which means how much the device is going to cost and how much carbon can you extract. Is 1 plus 1 equal to 2? Is that adding or not? That is the question. Let us take an example of, say, Uber, right? So let us talk of, say, Uber or a company like that. They would have done design thinking, or Ola, right? You people know Ola, right? So Uber or Ola, for instance, they know people want to go from point A to point B. That's a big problem they are solving. But they did not think that way. They thought about how much is a person willing to pay to go from point A to point B. That's the first question they asked. The second question is, how much is a driver willing to negotiate on their profit so that they can take somebody from point A to point B, right? So these are the questions that you need to ask. There are two things. If you're building a company like Uber or Ola, there are two important stakeholders. One is the driver, the other one is the rider, right? So if you go to the Uber website, there is a driver login, there is a user login, right? So they have done design thinking on both of these people. So a driver, so what all can I give a driver so that they become part of my business and they find value? They said, okay, I'll give you car for free, right? Every month I will deduct 500, every day I'll deduct 500 rupees from you. You start with the car. Okay, the driver is happy. Then the driver, they say, okay, I will give you 1,000 rupees extra if you drive for 12 hours a day, right? So the driver is happy. Now for the user, they went out and said, I'm going to give you ride A to B at 10 rupees for 2 kilometers. If you take auto rickshaw, it's going to cost you 15 rupees. So then they made a calculation saying if 50,000 people or 1 million people get on my system, I need to spend so many $1 billion, and after that I will start making profit, right? So this is the thought process here. They're not saying, they might be saying, yes, I want to solve the problem of mobility, I want everybody to be able to use AC cars and go from point A to point B, but that is not a solution. That is not a solution. That is not the steps of design thinking that they would have applied. They would have thought how it is meaningful to each one of us in our own capacity. So, is that clear, people? Process and synthesize the findings and put it down from a user perspective. User, develop an understanding whom you're designing for, what are the needs, and what are the insights. So the insights that I gave you right now about Ola is something that you need to come out with. Sahil, I'm sorry, I'm talking about Sahil because he just spoke up about his idea. Express insights you developed and define principles, right? What I mean by that, or what it means by that is, you said, I'm going to sell my carbon and I'm going to make money out of this, and that's how air is going to become pure, right? This is what you said. What is your insight from that? What is your insight? See, one is developing the project. You said somebody's already doing this, smog detection is there, and I'm going to copy that. But that is not the insight, right? That is just an opportunity for you to build the solution faster. That is not an insight. The insight that you need to tell me is, every hour in the streets of Delhi, how many kgs of carbon will come and how much will this carbon sell for? That is the insight. And to set up this whole tower inside the busiest junction in Delhi, how much will it cost? Who is going to pay for that? Right? This is the question that you need to answer. Now, a lot of people will ask, many times you don't have answer for this, right? Many times you don't have answer for this, what to do, right? That's the biggest question people will ask. Then you need to define ideas to find answers. So it's a big canvas. As I said, you're going to open up a big canvas, right? And write down empathy, define, ideate, and then leave it empty, right? So, how much is it going to cost me to set up one device? You don't know the answer. Leave it empty. Then start ideating, okay? Uh, Start talking to people. So, these are all parallel processes. So, what I'm trying to see is, don't just jump into building your solution. Or even if you're building a product, go ahead and build. And how to build the product, what you should be building, I will come to it tomorrow. Tomorrow is about rapid prototyping, because today we will do the ideation, come up with some idea of what we're going to build. And tomorrow I'm going to talk about how we can package it. And I'm going to talk about a few products that we are building today and how design thinking is being applied into that, right? So ideate. What do you mean by ideate? Focus on idea generation. You translate the problem into solutions. Explore a wide variety and large quantity of ideas to go beyond obvious solutions to a problem. This is very important. So we started off with this thing, right? How important an idea is, right? So a lot of people said idea is 1920, or almost 90% of you said idea is where design thinking starts from, right? But then if you've noticed, if you're sitting with friends in a party, in a bar or in a pub, or you're just sitting outside and chatting up, you get 100 ideas. But does these 100 ideas all have meaning? No, right? So it's, I have an idea and I will become a billionaire is a very stupid thing to say. An idea which can be implemented is what makes sense, and why the idea is important and why it should be implemented is even more important. And that's where design thinking comes into picture, right? So the first three stages, as I said, is empathize. Most of us just observe. Please note down, most of us just observe and start building, which is the biggest mistake that you will do. If you observe, you need to go and engage. To engage, how do you engage is the next question. what kind of questions should you ask, or should you ask questions at all, is what you need to understand. Like I said, Henry Ford said, if I had asked them, they would have said they would have needed a stronger horse. But he went out and built a stronger engine, right? And that's where the word horsepower came into existence. Okay. Then the engines that they started building in the thing, they said that this engine is equal to 10 horses. This engine is equal to 100 horses, right? So that's where this whole thing came, because people were using horses for carriages, not engines, right? So Henry Ford was the person who made that translation, and that was the greatest design thinking idea or innovation that he could bring in at that point, right? So how did that happen? That happened through engagement, right? So the engagement need not necessarily always being going and asking, what do you want? It's about watching and listening to people. It's about engaging with them, understanding how much are they willing to spend. Like, the question that Henry Ford would have probably asked is, from New York, New Jersey, to go right now in your carriage, you take 2 hours. How much will you pay if I can take you there in 1 hour? Right? That was the question probably he would have asked, right? So that's the way you should engage. Then they would say, okay, in that case, I will pay you $2. I'll give you $2 more. Can you take me in 1 hour? Right? So this is the kind of question. So similarly, Sahil and whoever is working on these projects, ask that question. If I make the air clean, will you give me 5 rupees? Ask your friends, right? They will say, no, I will not give it. It's okay, I'll wear a mask and I'll go most of the times. Somebody was asking me a question about, Ola basically copied Uber. So that is the idea they took from, right? Yes. So let us bring this to context. Okay. And even Sahil was talking about this. He said that there is already a small purifier that is there, and we want to use the technology or improve on the technology, which is all fine, right? That is how technologies move. That is how solutions come. Flipkart was a spin-off from Amazon, and something else. Facebook came out of something else, and blah blah blah. That's all fine. That's how things work, right? You need not be always having a core idea that is latest and somebody has never heard of it. It never works like that. But what you need to understand, what is Ola's business model versus what is Uber's business model, right? There is a lot of difference. Yes, both of them are taking a driver, taking a car, and getting you an app, and you'll book and go. That's fine. But that's not how things work. At the base level, Ola's strategy was to look at India as a market. Uber's strategy was to look at world as a global market. And they started picking out cities one after the other, one after the other. Their expansion plan was different. Ola's direction primarily was to address India as a market, right? So their structure, their pricing. In fact, when they came, they had a call center, right? They never even had I don't know if people are aware of that. Ola also had a call center, right? So you could call in and say, I'm here, I want the cab to come and pick me up, right? And then they dropped that idea because initially they thought that the internet penetration was not that good enough, right? And slowly they evolved. So from that perspective, it might appear like the same idea, but their implementation, whom they're trying to address, the needs of the people. So they were the first people to introduce auto rickshaw, and now everybody is doing that. So things like that. So the context and things were very, very different. So because we do not know what percentage of money is coming from sedan, or what percentage of money is coming from a smaller car, from a mini, or from the airport drop-offs, we don't know. So all of their strategies is something that is internal to them, where they would have gone through these processes. So please don't ever assume that the idea has to be novel. That is not the point. What we need to understand is who's the user, what is their needs, and what is the insight we have. These are the three things. The insight that they had when they started Flipkart was that India as a market is ready, and we can focus on them and do another Amazon here. Or when Ola wanted to do, they said India as a market is ready. to go much deeper than just the large cities, right? So Ola's penetration into smaller cities was much faster, much quicker than Uber, right? Then Ubers had to invest so much more money to come and compete with Ola. And then now maybe they're same or together. I don't want to get into who's the winner, right? As I already started, design thinking is not going to assure you the end result. Design thinking is going to give you that leverage to get started on the right footing, to ask the right question, right? So that's the whole context. So from that perspective, we were empathizing, we were defining from the perspective of the user or the end user point, right? It could be your customer or it could be the end user, the person who's going to experience your solution or the person who's going to pay for your solution. In the end of the day, we are talking about these things only, right? So when you talk of blind people, maybe blind people is the end user. So maybe the device is great, but then who's going to pay for it? Do they have the money? Is this an NGO that's going to pay for it? Is it the government that's going to pay for it? Is there going to be a subsidy or not? All of these, right? All of these are ideas. Please understand. I'm going to make it in such a way that blind people crossing the road, that device is going to cost only 2,000 rupees, and that will be gifted by their friends and family to blind people. That is one. Second thing is the government is going to subsidize these things and give it free for blind people. The third thing is maybe there is an NGO who might fund it through their CSR program or through some NGO or tribe or some funds or something like that, who's going to buy 10,000 of these units and give it to blind people, right? That could be 4 or 5 ideas that you have with the perspective of whom. You're not making the blind person as a center at that point. You're making the person who's going to pay for it, the customer as the center. Now make the blind person as a center, right? In that case, when you empathize with them, you should actually talk like 100 times out of 100 times. I have met a lot of people working on social problems, which is great. But the problem that I have found is they say, I want to solve pollution, I want to use renewable, all of the same problem. I want to solve water purity problem, I want to solve blind people problem. All of these are great. Okay, I'm really, really happy to see that people are thinking direction. But the biggest question that they fail to answer is, how many blind people have you met? Zero. Do you think that blind person will be able to afford it? I don't know. Do you think that the blind person will understand English because somebody said I'll use Google Maps and they will talk in that language? Then they don't even know how to operate the phone. So the larger problem might not be the device that you have built. It might be the whole user experience. The UX might be a failure. It might not just work, right? So things like this will come out. You must do that in your empathy stage, in your definition stage. You will have more than one definition for your problem. Definition with perspective of the customer, definition with perspective of the user, and most importantly, definition with perspective of the creator, right? On why you are doing it and why your team has to build this. What's in it for you, right? It could be money, it could be fame, it could be satisfaction, it could be whatever, right? But you need to put that down, right? That's more from an entrepreneurship perspective. But then it's also very important for you to understand, oh, this is for because I want to win the prize money for the ThingQbator, or I want to go to MIT for my MS. That is all fine. But put that down. Very important. The more honest you are in this design thinking process, the better it is for you. All right. So please put that down and you will have a clearer idea, right? So when I talk of idea, here it is. You translate the problem into solutions. At this point, you bring your solutions. At this point, you say, okay, I will build a device which is picking up this sensor and it has this smog converter. I'm doing this renewable energy. Maybe I'm going to use a blade or I'm going to use a vertical turbine or maybe I'm going to use a solar panel. I don't know, right? But that's what you need to work through now. This is where your ideas start to become solutions, right? So translate these thought processes to become solutions. At this point, you can have more than one idea of a prototype. Okay, please remember in design thinking. So when I said build out a framework, that's what you need to do. So just put out these points the way I have shown you on the screen. Just say empathy, define. Then you start your ideas. There could be 10 ideas. Define with respect to user, with respect to end customer, all of this, right? So it's because it is always a dynamic process. Please remember that anything that you build as a solution is highly dynamic, and it is never restrained to one person or one group of people. It's not always the user. It's also the funding, it's also the money, it's also the practicality of the solution. There are hundreds of things. So for each one of this, you need to have an idea. Okay, is this clear? What I mean by that is creativity. Combine the conscious and unconscious with the rational thoughts and imagination. Very, 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 very important. Most of the times we imagine, oh, I will put smog detectors on the road and then pollution will go away. Fine, that is great. But then maybe you will need a million smoke capturing machines for every road. And each one might cost $1 million, right? So this is where it becomes important for you to understand that solution might be great, but it might not be practical at all, right? The idea might be great, it might be groundbreaking. Similarly, leverage the group to reach out to new ideas and build up. This is why you need a team. This is why you need to talk to more and more people. You need mentors. You need everybody to do this, right? So that's fine. And then in the end of the day, you need to have evaluation. And evaluation stage will come through prototypes. And prototypes need not be physical devices. Please remember, prototypes could just be a sentence, prototype could just be a video, prototype just could be an idea also. So I'm going to come to prototype in detail later tomorrow. But at this point, these three stages become highly, highly effective and important for you to go to the next step. So when you look at design thinking broadly, we have empathize, define, ideate, then prototype, and then test and repeat and repeat and repeat. Correct? So is this clear at this point that when we get into ideate stage, we are not doing one idea. We have 100 ideas maybe. We have 1,000 ideas. We might be having 1,000 solutions, which is fine. But we need to put that down. Very important. It might be silliest ideas or it might be the greatest ideas in the world. Because the challenge that we have with creators or with scientific thinkers or people like us who are obsessed by technology and solutions is that we always start looking for perfection. We always start looking for things which right from the onset needs to solve the problem. And what happens in this process is that we miss out a lot of things, especially on the usability aspect, on the commercial aspect, as well as on the scale aspect. So please put down any ideas you have and then start sequencing them into a more meaningful solution, right? So the next step is to prototype, right? So build to think, a simple, cheap, and fast way to shape ideas so you can experience and interact with them. So bringing your ideas to life is prototype. So here you do two things. As I said, prototype is not always a show and tell kind of a thing. It could be even a presentation, right? So what I'm trying to say here is start building, create an artifact, a low resolution image, or a physical object, or a digital sketch, or a drawing, so that you start putting things, your ideas, into more real form. Then storyboard. Storyboard is very, very, very important. So what I mean by storyboard is to create scenarios where this idea will be functional, to create scenarios and people who might benefit from this idea, people who might get affected from this idea. Very important. See, all of this might be sounding very fancy, right? So if I take a step back, we started in 2013 to work on a 3D printer, right? So we were already 4 years into business of Li2, and we decided to build a 3D printer. So we just went out, started building a prototype first, and then a lot of things happened. Then we got a context, and today when you see what the company is doing, Brahma 3 is the name of the company. What the company is doing today versus what we set out to do, we built India's first indigenous desktop 3D printer, which was essentially a prototype. But then we also started telling stories about what problems can each device solve, what problems can we do without actually manufacturing the machine, but just setting up an ecosystem. So that's how things will evolve. So prototype is not always the final product. When you go into the market and test, your prototypes start changing continuously. So from that perspective, it's very important to prototype and then eventually go into the market and test and build and build and build. So this is the broad structure of a design thinking process. Okay. So at this stage, is there any questions?
As you asked us, like what we have observed, what is the emphasis of our product, and also what are the end users, we have done little bit. Also, the thing is that importance of a project is like carbon fiber are more broadly used in defense or also used in the products. Okay, because carbon fiber are very strong. So our end user will be like a defense will be using in the like ships or the military equipment. So these are the end users, and emphasis like will be producing like 0. As for our calculation, we have calculated those things like every hour it will be producing 0.1 micro meter of the carbons. So for calculating per hour, it will be a 24 micro like nanometers, 2400 nanometers particles. So these are importance we have seen on this project.
Great, great. Okay. So, but are these insights, the question I'm going to ask is good. Please go on mute. So, what I was trying to tell you was, yes, you got some insights. So, whatever you're talking about is what we call as insights, but they are not solutions. Please remember. Right? It might give you 24 microns, or it might give you whatever the technical terms that you're talking about. They're all insights of your product or the definition of your product. My question was not that. The question very simply was how effective or how many of these devices will go to market and effectively bring out a profitable solution into this. So that is the bigger question that we want to answer here before we get into building your product. That's what I was trying to say. So let me make my point very clear. You're talking about this part, right? You're talking about prototype. In the prototype, you're talking about how your product is going to work. And you're talking about scenarios where in the physical environment, it can give you so many microns and things like that. What I am asking you is 2 steps before that. That is when you go to define, here, what are the insights that you have with this? Like, for instance, with this product that you're trying to build, how much money are you going to invest to build this prototype, and versus how much what you say pollution is you're going to solve, right? Who's going to pay for it? Those are the few questions that you need to also ask. And most importantly, in the prototype later, I want you to know what is that critical feature or what is that component that you have to address. So that is what I was coming to. I'm not sure if I made sense here, because I spoke 2 or 3 things together. But what I'm trying to say is, what I was trying to say is, don't go so deep into the solution at this point, right? So this is specifically, say, if you have 7 days in a week, let me tell you this. Today is a Saturday. Saturday, 3 hours is about design thinking. It's not about prototype. Because what happens is you people have already built your projects. So many people are so deep down into where you are and you're building it. So I'm not telling you to stop all those things, right? This is not a linear process. Design thinking, if you see the map here also, it's not linear. You can see it goes up and down everywhere, right? It could be anywhere in the process, everything is linked to each other. So you might be in the prototype state. Doesn't mean you go back to your idea. Doesn't mean that you should not go back to empathize and do that cycle. So from that perspective, Sahil, what I'm trying to say is it is right that your product has so much technological benefits and things like that. But today, being a Saturday, these 3 hours is about design thinking, where you ask those questions. Okay, I have this prototype. What next? I have this prototype. Why do I have this prototype? Whom do I sell it to? Who is my customer? Start making those lists down. And then within the team, start allocating that to different people. Start building a storyboard of what part of your project is relevant to which person, right? If you take this particular road, these devices are there, and it's going to make you feel better. So a lot of customers might want, not a lot of commuters might want to use that road, right? So that could be a great selling point in your ideation to the government to get your product a much more meaningful solution, right? But don't misunderstand my points, where I'm not trying to tell that don't do your prototype or you have to scrap everything that you've done and come back to define or come back to empathy. No, you need to, as I said, you need to just fill out all of these. And then suddenly you might realize, oh, this only this much is enough. I don't really have to do so many things. Or you might also realize, oh, this is not enough. I need more things to be done. Only then this will succeed. That's all we're trying to find, right? Whether because if you do one thing and if you do the same thing again and again and again, hoping to get to the solution might be wrong, because the direction you're going might itself be the opposite side, right? So you might probably not need the hardware. Your core might be just a patent. Your core might just be solving that, building out that sensor, maybe, right? Then the rest of the infrastructure might just be there, because building that simple sensor for smog detection or some device that does the conversion might just cost you, it might be a chemical formula. And that might get you a couple of $1 million of funding rather than building that entire device, putting it on the road, right? So that insight, we need to go to that point. So that's why today in Brahma, we design and manufacture printers, but you won't believe that is only about 5 to 10% of the revenues that we do in Brahma. It is not about selling the machines, but we work with large companies. We work on their design solutions, where their present design solutions can be 3D printed or can be migrated to new rapid prototyping solutions. We make much more revenues from that aspect than selling the machine. And we don't even advertise this part of it, of the business, because nobody needs to know, because this business works only through references and point of contact. So somebody says that, meet people from Brahma to discuss about your molding process optimization or something like that, and we work with them. So that's how things work. So that's the insight that we got. That's what we start learning. So and design thinking, as I said, you don't have to follow this. You just write down the questions. As I said, design thinking is about asking the right question. That's all. Figuring out what is the right question to ask, rather than always, most of you, Rishabh also, and a few other people, we're always trying to justify. We're always trying to say my solution is this because of this. No, I'm not bothered. Nobody is bothered about why your solution is the best. Everybody is bothered about how it's going to benefit them. Why is it meaningful to them? And is it something valuable to them? So value proposition, right? Always define, always build, always do things from a perspective of value proposition. Otherwise, it's meaningless. Why should I be bothered? Okay, you might have 10 patents, okay, on your project. So why should I be bothered? I might say, oh, wow, great, I'll clap and I'll go. right? Same with even if you put the product into the market and you say, you advertise, this is 10 patents this product has. Still, as a customer, how does it matter to me? I don't care if it has 10 patents. I just care whether it's going to solve my problem, right? And whether I can afford it. That's all. So try to answer questions from that perspective. And later, to scale, if you need a patent, to protect yourself, you need a patent, or to generate more revenue, you need a patent. Fine. That's a part of the idea. That is also one of the ideas. What is one of the ideas? I'm going to patent these three aspects of my product. That's an idea. I'm going to go to Indian government. That is an idea. And what does the Indian government need? That is the prototype. What do I need for a patent? That is a prototype. So there might be 20 prototypes for your project. Each one should be divided into smaller pieces and kept together, right? And then only things will come together into a more meaningful structure. And each one of them, you will be surprised, will take not more than 3 to 4 hours, because what the Indian government needs might not be a working solution. They might just need the context and some findings, a presentation. And they might say, okay, fine, this is a project worthwhile funding. Or an NGO might need a small presentation rather than the working product, right? The end user might need it. Somebody who's buying the device might want to see it, but then maybe the end user is irrelevant at this point, right? The customer and their usage might be irrelevant. So build that prototype parallelly. And as I said, when I use the word prototype, the first thing that will come to your head is a device or a gadget. No, prototype is, as I said, it's a story. And it could be a piece of paper or it could be a working device. So please divide these things. So more than prototype, it's the ideas, right? Oh, I want this prototype to be like this. This function should be there because this is what it will reduce the cost by so much. Right? As I said, it will all be one next to the other like this, where you simply say, this is my empathy part. I'm working with blind people. Then you ask, did I observe something with the blind people in the empathy part? For this observation, is there a definition of what I can do? For this definition, is there an idea on how I can implement it? For this idea, is there a prototype that I can do? That is one full sentence, one next to the other. Most important thing I'll ask you in the second half is, what engagement did you have with the end user? Or what engagement did you have with the potential buyer? What is the insight you got, right? Whatever is the insight that you get from here is going to be your definition. For the user, what is the needs and what is the insight? They will pay me 100 rupees more if I add this feature. They will buy 10,000 of these units if this feature is there. Or this feature, everybody thinks they need an app. I think this app is not needed. That is the insight. So start defining from that the process and put your findings of empathy into a structure. Very important, right? These are all pieces of paperwork. As I said, it's not going to cost you money, but it's going to bring you focus. It could be anything. If you're talking of handlooms, if you're talking of internet company, if you're talking of making jams or chocolates and selling, or it could be photography, anything, right? In the end of the day, what is it that is useful? What is it that is meaningful? That's what you need to look at, right? So that becomes your definition. Your definition is not how your product is going to work. That is very boring, actually. I don't care. I'll never listen to that. I am going to understand, let us look at big success stories and understand what is it that they sold. Facebook, what did they sell? Or Instagram, what did they sell, right? Um, and Google, what are they selling, right? So you need to understand that. They are not selling anything. Facebook is not selling anything to you. Facebook is not selling anything to anybody. They're just gathering your information. And this information, they are selling it to somebody else so that they can give you advertisements. Right? That's where the business model is, if you understand. So Facebook is just thinking how you can log in and use their platform, Instagram, WhatsApp, or whatever. And they're thinking how that when you use it, how they can use that information to tell somebody to give them ads so that they can give the ads back to you and you pay to buy something. Okay. So this is the larger cycle of a social media platform, right? So it's so complicated. Their design thinking process is so complicated because you might think, oh, nice filter on Instagram is great, but so what? So Mark Zuckerberg or anybody who are running that business will ask, okay, nice filter will bring me 10,000 more users, but what do I do with them? How do I make money out of that? How do I keep them engaged so that they come back again and click my ad and then give me money and buy the product, right? That's the end result. So the definition lies there. User should have good filters. Advertising product companies should see more users, and the ads should be relevant. And how much money will I make from that? So there are 5 or 6 definitions of their approach or their strategy. How do I get 10,000 users on my platform? How do I sell 5 devices? That is the first question. What are those 2 features that I need on my device so that a blind person would want to use it? So you have to go back right up to empathy and see what is most important for a user, for a blind person. Is it important for the blind person to cross the road, or is it important for the blind person to climb the stairs? Which one will be more meaningful for them? That's what you need to start with, right? So, can they use technology? Then you will have learnings, right? So, can they use technology? Do I need technology there? Do I need Google Maps there or not? For that, you need to go back and do empathy again. Then you need to define and ideate. So I will use Google Maps. That is one. I will use text to speech converter. That is another idea. I will use speech to text converter. That is another idea. I will use a vibration motor to give them an indication that some obstacle is there. That is one idea. There will be 100 ideas you'll get. Put everything down. Then start taking them out, and then we will enter prototype. Today, I'm not going to talk about prototype. These 3 stages is what I'm going to talk about. Empathize, define, and ideate. Is that clear, people? So this is the huge difference between just going out and building a product. All I want you to do is maintain a file, put everything down on paper, write it. Okay, I'm not telling you to create a online PPT that you can do later. Right now, take a file the old school way, take a pencil, take a eraser, and do it. Don't even take a pen. Take a pencil, color pencil, maybe 2 color pencils, eraser, start writing. And then keep replicating. You will have maybe 15 or 20 sheets by the end of 1 or 2 weeks. Once you arrive at a more concrete thing, then start making presentations, then asking the right questions, doing the right thing. That works or not is secondary. Am I asking the right question? Am I putting the whole thought process together in that way? That's what I'm looking to solve in today's session, and take the session from there. Thank you so much.